Hey everybody, Coach Dave here for HeartFit 365. Today on the show we've got best-selling author Matt Fitzgerald doing a live interview with us via Skype all the way from his home in California, and really excited to have him on the show, so stay tuned. Hey everybody, Coach Dave here and welcome back to the show. Today on the show we have our first guest, Matt Fitzgerald, best-selling author, here to talk about his latest book, Diet Cults. We'll be hooking up with Matt via Skype in just a few minutes, but I want you to remember, if you have any questions for us on the show, if you have any questions for Matt, please leave them in the comments below, and either Matt or myself will be more than happy to get back to you and answer those questions. Now, Matt's written a number of great books. Actually, he's got 22 titles to his name. And the last one, Diet Cults, really hit home with me because there's a lot of common sense advice about some of the diet myths and cultures that take place out there. So without further ado, I'm just going to log in. We're going to start up our conversation with Matt. My computer is an older one here. I've got a MacBook, not a MacBook Pro. So the picture might lag a little bit. The audio might not be perfect, but bear with me. I think this will be fun for the first time around. So here we go. So I'm here today with a good friend of mine, Matt Fitzgerald, who is a best-selling author. Matt's got a number of books that he's published. He's been his byline has been published on a number of national magazines such as Bicycling, Maxim Magazine, Men's Fitness, Men's Health, the Men's Journal, just to name a few, Women's Health. And one of the books that Matt has just released and written, Diet Cults, really kind of struck a chord with me because I think a lot of people who set out to start a diet in the first place usually do it for the reason that they want to lose a couple of pounds. And in thinking along those lines, they tend to get caught up in the diets that they're being a part of. And one of the things that struck me, Matt, with your book was the notion that given the sufficient motivation, any diet will work. And so I was hoping you might be able to just talk to us a little bit about motivation and the thought process behind diet cults and how those different diet programs sort of work in a cult-like mentality.
Yeah, so I mean, you know, what the research shows when scientists actually look at the habits of people who actually succeeded in losing a lot of weight, keeping the weight off, you know, you would think, okay, there must be some diet that they all share, or at least most of them either are on a low-carb diet, or Weight Watchers, or a liquid diet, or they're vegetarians.
Right.
But actually, that's not true at all. They're all over the map in terms of the actual mechanisms or dietary tools that people use to successfully lose weight. But what they all have in common is evidence of a very high level of motivation, not willpower. Willpower is either you're born with it or you're not. I think everyone has enough willpower to lose weight. So motivation is the key. It's just if you're determined to succeed in losing weight, it doesn't matter. It's not that anything goes, that literally any diet will do, but if you're really motivated, you'll find a way. You know, where there's a will, there's a way. There's a lot of truth to that when it comes to weight loss.
So when you think about a lot of the research, I know a lot of your books talk about science and backed by good science. In a lot of camps, I think people can take data and skew it towards their own personal perspective or their group's objectives. And what is your finding being, now that you've kind of looked at a number of the most popular diets, have you noticed that the research is kind of twisted sometimes, or what are your thoughts behind just how the information is presented to people?
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and the way I address that is that I like science and I refer to it. There's good science and bad science, but also there's science that it's good, but it's not necessarily relevant. So you're right, it can be skewed to serve any agenda, and that's why I also very much like to look at the real world, best practices of successful people. In Diet Cults, I talk a lot about the shared diet habits of elite endurance athletes, because that's an area where if you're doing things that don't work, you're going to fail. You know, if you're trying to make your living as a professional triathlete or cyclist or what have you, you have to do things right, both with training and with your diet. Now, of course, these people are doing things that the rest of us aren't doing, so you have to. It's not all 100% relevant. But what's very interesting is that if you look at the way these high performers eat, most of them are not on bad diets. They eat they're what I call agnostic healthy eaters for the most part, which basically means they maintain culturally normal diets for wherever they're from. So if you've got a Japanese swimmer, he or she eats like a Japanese person, but it's just a very high quality version of that diet. If you have an American professional mountain biker, he or she eats like an American, but it's a very high quality version of an American diet. And in my experience, this isn't science, but in my experience with interacting with very, very healthy non-endurance athletes, I see the same thing, that some of them are on fad diets, but really a majority are just agnostic healthy eaters. And I think that science aside, these people are living proof that that's possible. And for most people, it's a more enjoyable and sustainable way to eat healthily. When everything you're doing is familiar, you can still have Thanksgiving dinner with your family. You're not on a diet that's so weird that you become sort of antisocial, or preaching down at people about how you've discovered the one true way to eat. You can still fit in as an eater, but you just have high standards and you get great results from it.
I think that's a good point. I know one of my favorite triathletes, Craig Alexander, made a point of saying once that a Spartan diet, a diet whatever that is, shouldn't be so Spartanist that 3 weeks after being on it, you feel you have to fall off the bandwagon and go back to where you were. It's all about sustainability. And, there's a big, here in Canada where I am, there's a big push on right now towards clean eating. And there's kind of an argument or a discussion to be had around clean eating. And in your book, what you talk about is that the world that we live in is making us sick. And I think people can take things to the extremes. And when you think about clean eating as an example, you can only eat as clean as the produce or the food that's made available to you is. You can't lose sleep over the fact that you can't control the pesticides that might be running into a farmer's field. I think we just tend to overthink things too much. And the premise of eating clean or geographically close to where you are, like the Mediterranean diet or the Japanese diet, they work for people in those areas. What would you say to the reader who is really concerned about organics and boy, they've just got to make sure that everything is as natural as possible, and do you think they're overthinking things a little too much? I guess that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, I think it's a simple fact that you can achieve and maintain the highest level of health without going to real extremes with your diet. So, becoming paranoid or fearful. The psychology of diet is just as important as the physical side. So if you're so caught up in perfecting the physical side that it makes you unhappy, that's not a good diet, because you should be physically healthy and happy. Both those things matter just as much. And sometimes you have to give up maybe a little bit on the physical health side to maximize the happiness side, the mental health side. There's a little bit of compromising you have to do.
Okay.
Having said all that, I do think everything matters. So just as a consumer myself, I try to buy organic. I actually grow a lot of my own fruits and stuff. I spend a little more money on the highest quality food, because if enough people do that, then it will start to change the marketplace and make it easier for everyone to be able to access higher quality stuff. So I think it matters, and I try to make a difference, but I don't lie awake at night thinking, oh my goodness, I just ate a non-organic apple and I'm doomed.
Well, one of the really cool things that happens in our area, I live in the fruit belt here in the Niagara Peninsula of Ontario, and there seems to be a growing trend towards co-ops with local farmers where, you can do a community basket and you pay your X amount of dollars for the season. And that's a great way to introduce yourself to real food and support the local economy. But again, you just can't control all the things that go into the food that's being fertilized. So that's a whole different discussion. One thing that I kind of got from some of your reading that I thought was really interesting, and it talked a little bit about eating like an athlete and thinking like an athlete, because a lot of your books they do tend to lead themselves towards athletes, not specifically a non-athlete. Right. So I know you make that distinction. I tend to tell a lot of non-athletes to think like an athlete when they eat, and maybe think about fueling yourself 6 times a day and thinking about what you're doing for the next 3 hours and fueling yourself accordingly. What do you think of that strategy for helping, say, the non-athlete be successful in managing their eating process throughout the day? Do you think that's a good strategy, or do you think that's something they should kind of maybe shy away from?
No, I'm in total agreement my approach is to get people to think like athletes, and on a very practical level, the reason that works is that everyone, no matter who you are, should exercise every day. So that's sort of, what's the difference? I think the difference between an athlete and a non-athlete is whether you compete or not.
Absolutely.
Exercise or not. Absolutely everyone should make. It's like brushing your teeth. Gotta do it.
Well, that's where you and I have a big agreement, is that, I tell people, I can't believe that people don't exercise every day, and I have to remind myself that I'm not the norm, that I'm among the minority that do that. But in trying to motivate those folks that this is a way of living and it's very sustainable, that's the other thing that I get from your books. Very, very sustainable message. It's not always about being the elite top athlete. It's about how can you sustain and maintain this activity and the quality of your life as you grow older. So just in thinking about the book's Diet Cults and Racing Weight, and I know you've got 22 titles to your name, which is fantastic. And I know you've got some online coaching that's available through your website as well. Do you want to mention anything about that before we wrap up the interview?
Yeah, so I'm a busy guy with my writing, so I don't do a lot of one-on-one, like full-service coaching, but I do offer custom training plan design. And for me, it's like a great way to just be able to interact directly with athletes, because a lot of when you're writing, you're just pushing stuff out there and hoping it does some good. So yeah, I do. If you are someone with a specific goal and you want some help with the training, you can find me at mattfitzgerald.org, and I'd be happy to help you out.
And that's awesome. We'll have all that information on the video as well. And Matt, I want to thank you for sharing your time with us today. Really great to have you on board here. Is there any parting messages that maybe you want to give advice to the non-athletes? I know the demographic, you and I have talked about the demographic that I serve, and it tends to be adults in their 40s and 50s who are non-athletes. They're people who are just trying to improve the quality of their life. And any parting thoughts for those folks?
Yeah, one thing that's great to keep in mind, and you're a living example of this, Dave, is that, the out-of-shape, sedentary you is no different than the super in-shape guy that you want to be. It's not that there's anything missing. Like, it's a possibility that's open to absolutely everyone. There's no obstacle that necessarily has to prevent you from getting where you want to be with your health and fitness. That person you want to be is in the same situation you are in, and you made that transformation in midlife. So, I think you're a great role model for people who want to affect a similar transformation for themselves.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, Matt, and as you and I discussed, it's just about taking it one day at a time. You don't get to the top of the mountain by leaps and bounds. You do it one day at a time. So, well, thanks, Matt, for your time very much. Really appreciate it. And for those who want more information on Matt Fitzgerald, he's got some great books out there, great articles, great coaching service. All the information will be at the bottom of this email or this video today. So, again, thanks, Matt. Thanks for being on board.
Thank you, Dave. I enjoyed it.
All right, so, we had a little bit of lagging issues there on the show today. Hopefully the audio quality made up for the lack of picture that we had at some points during the show. But again, I'm starting to use new technology as an old guy, and I get my kids' hand-me-downs is what I get to play with. So I think that worked fairly well. The point was made. Great information from Matt, so I really want to thank Matt again for being a part of our first interview on the show. And for more information about Matt, his website is coaching. You'll be able to find all that information in the comments below. And yeah, we want to really thank Matt for being a part of the program today. And we've got more interviews lined up for the future, so hoping that you will stay tuned, check them out. And again, if you want to start a discussion or have any questions about any of the information that you saw here on today's show, please leave them in the comments below, and we'd be more than happy to respond to them. Thanks, guys. Do something great for your heart today, and have a great day. We'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.